When was Lisa at your barn?
Yeah. So that was in like 2008, 2007.
Okay, so we're looking at probably 13 years.
Yeah, something like that.
13 years. Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if these glasses darken and they kind of look a little like they're darkening. It's okay.
Well, you look great. I mean, I meant to tell you that too. I love the glasses. All the different ones you have are just so cool.
I know. You got to have nice frames. All right. What I'm going to do is when I hit broadcast, I'm going to just create a chat and just ask people to tell us where they're from.
Okay.
And it's 1 minute to go. So I'm going to hit broadcast.
You recording as well?
Yep, been recording the whole time. That way I don't forget to hit record, which, yeah.
Yeah.
I just set it up to automatically. So, yeah.
Good.
All right, and people are joining, but no one's told us where they're from yet. So just type in the chat. Hi, everybody, as you're coming in, just type in the chat and let us know where you're from. It's always fun to see where people are signing in from. Shari and I are actually quite close to each other. St. Louis, Missouri, Lucy, UK. Lucy, you must have signed in before from UK because I remember seeing that. Chicago, Maryland, Iowa, North Island, Highlander, Southern New Jersey, Chicago, Knoxville, Worcester. It's always great. I love watching this part, Alberta, because it's so amazing that we can reach so many people from all around the world just from our laptop in our home. Connecticut, I'm from Connecticut, so that's great. And Southern California, and I'm always struggling with what time to do the webinars because I know that I do it at 1 o'clock to kind of catch people in Europe, but I miss the people in Australia. So next week, I think I have some more meetings at like 8 o'clock at night. So I'll catch the Australians and that'll help out. All right, people are still rolling in.
Hey, Wendy, I forgot about the UNH connection too.
Oh, are you a grad?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
All right, so it looks like it's slowed down just a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody, I'm Wendy Murdoch, and this is my daily Zoom webinar. Today, my guest is Shari Goodwin, and Shari's actually local. She doesn't live, but probably about 5 miles, maybe a little more, away from me. And I've known Shari for probably, we're guessing about 13 to 14 years. We've known of each other for longer than that through a mutual friend, Dr. Joyce Harmon, who I had on last week on a Zoom meeting, and you can find that on my YouTube channel on Surefoot Equine. Today, we're gonna talk with Shari, and I have to say that one of the most, the best things that ever happened was Shari helped me get the name for Surefoot. And I was so struggling with what to call it. I had all these different ideas, and I was at Shari's barn. This is in 2012, and I was at Shari's barn. I was giving her a lesson. We're just bashing ideas around, and I don't know, Shari, how we even got there, but we did. So it's thanks to you that we have the name Surefoot, and that I really appreciate that. It really helped because I was so stuck on a name. So thank you so much.
Sure.
So Shari, what I'd love you to do is just kind of give us a little background and kind of tell us a bit about what you do.
Yeah, sure. Wendy, thank you so much for having me on. It's so fun. It's always great to see you, and now I get to see you on Zoom, so that's super fun. And yeah, it was a long time ago, and I remember that day with I'll tell you what I do in a second, but the Surefoot moment there, I was actually on my horse Fresco, and I remember us standing there talking about, what could the name be? What could the name be? And I had just written this article on how to be sure-footed in your business. So I actually remember it really, really well. And I was like, oh, and you said, oh, Surefoot. Do you think that? Yeah, Surefoot. That's it. So I remember that day. It was like lightning struck, and there it was, and it was born into the world. So
No, absolutely.
so fun. So anyway, I'm a business strategist and a leadership coach, and I help clients navigate change, go through the reinvention process, and build and lead sustainable businesses that they love. So I've been doing that now. I've reinvented myself a number of times. I was actually an environmental scientist for 20 years, and I have a master's in biology and undergrads in zoology and English. And I've been a lifelong horse lover. And in my last incarnation here of business development, which I've now had this company, Jaeger 2, for a little over 10 years. So 2009 was when it was incorporated. And what I decided to do is bring all of my favorite stuff into one place and see what I might be able to weave together that would add value to the world. So I partner with my herd of horses as well for equine assisted leadership and business development. So the horses are all part of my philosophy, my core philosophy. Even if people don't work with the horses, they always get some kind of horse philosophy. And in these circles and in business strategy and development and leadership, I'm known as the horse girl, or the horse lady. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but they always see me at these big conferences or I'll give talks. They're like, oh yeah, I know you. They don't know what my name is, but they're like, yeah, that's the horse lady.
Well, and it's just been, really amazing to see how you have taken all the loves in your life and shaped that into what is your profession. And I think that that's one of the keys in life, is that if we do what we love, we'll love what we do. And that's really what's happened for me, is shaping my life first in the teaching and now with Surefoot. And you are actually really instrumental, because we actually work together to kind of help me get some ideas going and how to kind of advance Surefoot. And I'll never forget, you said to go to my clients and ask them for, I don't know if it was testimonials, but it was a little homework assignment. And I was so amazed at the feedback I got from my clients, that had I not asked them, had you not prompted me to ask them, I wouldn't have gotten, and I wouldn't have actually had the words that I have that are on my website about what I do. Because it's so hard for us to really see what we do, because we're in it all the time, but someone from an outside perspective has a very different perspective. By the way, everybody, my background screen today is my front yard. And it's emerald green, and Brad keeps it really well mowed. And so I went out this morning and took a picture and used that as my background. So if you're wondering, I'm home instead of out in the stars today. So Shari, kind of walk us through a little bit about what you do and how you incorporate all these different ideas. Like, you've written 2 books. Right?
Yeah. So I have these little guys here. So these are all horse stuff, but they're not horse books, they're people books. This was the first one that I wrote in 2013. It's called Take the Reins, 7 Secrets to Inspired Leadership. And they're both on Amazon. You can check them out, browse them. There's a lot of content, actually. You don't even have to buy them. You can just browse. And I should also tell you, in the spirit of free information, which we all love free information, if you go up to YouTube, to my channel, you'll see the Reinvention in the Round series, which all was the foundation for the material in my latest Amazon bestseller, which came out last year, Reinventing Greatness, Leading Yourself and Others Through Change with Confidence and Trust. So there's a series up there. It's all free. They're live sessions. They're taped. So when you hear me referring to that, you can go check those out for free if you want to. So really what I do is I help business owners, corporate executives, leaders of any sort, and really anybody as a leader, really position for optimum impact. So you heard Wendy talking about, collecting testimonials or feedback on how you're perceived. One of Wendy's things, Wendy, is, boy, talk about greatness. Are you kidding me? I mean, so amazing. And one of your things, Wendy, was that you didn't really know how to say that. You didn't really know how to claim it. You were kind of shy about it, quite frankly. I'll just be honest there, if you don't mind. And I'm like, hey, you got to go listen to what people are talking and saying about you, because you're so amazing. And I think when you did, maybe that helped give you a little bit more confidence to get the language around what people were saying. And it's not about you. And this is the thing that we all have to get out of our own way, even with the writing, because ultimately, if you have a business or you're in a profession or you're working with your horse, it's not really about you. It's what you can give to others. And if your message is weak or your message is unclear, people can't hear it and they can't get what could really help them, right?
Yeah, so it does, like the things that you teach, it can also apply to somebody with their own horse. It's so often I have my students say, well, you know, what am I doing wrong, or and it's like, instead of kind of looking at the situation objectively, they look at it from a very personal perspective, but a very, they're the problem perspective. And what people have to realize in riding is you are the answer. You know, the horse cannot do the answer unless you provide him with an avenue or a choice. And you're the one who has to make that environment for him to be able to learn or to do whatever it is you want. And so when we go into that kind of negative, for lack of a better word, but like a less than kind of perspective, we're not really helping our horse. We're actually making it harder for him because he can't just give us the solution in that way. That's not possible.
It's such a great point. And really what I love about your whole method, and just so folks know, I've been a rabid Wendy fan ever since the day we met. So I bought everything. I have all the Surefoot pads. I bought all her videos, her books. I have her online program, even though I've worked with her privately. It doesn't matter. I just buy everything. So she has been probably the most impactful person on my riding ever. And I've ridden my entire life. And I've had Lemon Squeezy, we'll talk about him in a minute. He's my 11th horse. And I have 5 horses right now and done a little bit of competing here and there and eventing and dressage and hunters and all kinds of different things. Mostly right now, I'm just trotting around in a circle. But you have been pivotal. And the key here is about what I help my clients do is work in the high impact zone. And that is the place where you get the optimum result for the least amount of effort. So it's very Feldenkrais-esque, right? You're just making these sometimes very tiny little tweaks around the edges. Sometimes it's a wholesale reinvention. That's okay. But it's like, what's the smallest little maneuver that I can make that's going to affect the entire system in a positive way? So the precursor to that is you have to be aware, right? There's this awareness component. So how do you build awareness? And the Surefoot model is so perfect. You put the horse on the pads and he's like, whoa, I've got this new awareness of my balance, you know, and they get to test out things and they're asking questions and they're empowering themselves to kind of sort out their own balance. This is exactly the same thing I do with my clients, is empower them to first feel like there's this awareness, and reinvention and leading through change starts with this awareness component. If you're not aware, you can't change.
Right.
It's just it, right?
No, I always tell people that if, you know, you can look forever for your keys, they could be sitting in your hand, but you can't drive the car till you find them, right? And so Wizard of Oz is my favorite movie. And the reason it's my favorite movie is that she had the ruby slippers the whole time. She just didn't know how to use them. And I think that when I used to teach something called heart math, you might remember when I used heart math and I used the little biofeedback units. Yep. And what I would tell people is that they had the answer, and the answer was never more than what they knew or could do. In other words, it's not going to be something that you can't do. The answer's there. But until we get quiet and listen to, I would call it like your heart space, you couldn't hear that answer because there's all this busyness going on in your head. And so awareness is really that moment where we kind of let all that busyness go away and we really get present with what's in front of us. And we start looking at the detail. We start to see the little things, but everything has to get quieter for us to see that. And that's the basis of the Feldenkrais work, is one of the things that Dr. Feldenkrais recognized is that if he laid people down on the floor, they would be out of the effects of gravity. And then the nervous system would calm down so that you could feel and sense really tiny little movements. And that's really the key, is those little tiny movements that we see either using Surefoot pads or in our riding. It's not going to be typically a really big thing. It's lots of little tiny things that we notice and then can capitalize on and move with or go with or change in that moment, because it's small enough that it's not, like I say, you know, sometimes people don't recognize that they have a problem until they separate from their horse at the canter. But, you know, if we back it up to the walk, we can start to slow it down and see the little things that we need for when we get to canter.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And boy, if anybody's ever cantered on a ball,
yeah,
try that. That'll work your canter.
Yeah.
I got a really good left lead. The right lead, man, that's a little rough on that ball.
Yeah.
But one of the things to illustrate your point, Wendy, I remember there was a time shortly after we first met and I started taking lessons, and I was riding my horse Fresco, who we'll talk about in a second. He's going to be 21 this June, or July actually is his birthday. And I've had him his whole entire life since he was born. And he's been a mess. He's had EPM twice, he's had Lyme twice, he's had sacroiliac issues. He's just had a poor guy, So one time a vet was like, forget it. You just can't ride this horse anymore. And Dr. Harmon has worked on him for his whole career, bringing him back with all kinds of therapy. And Wendy's done Feldenkrais on him and on me. So there was one time I remember and then I've had my own issues. I used to ride all kinds of horses that were completely inappropriate, fall off, and kind of all over the place. I rode a lot of X-race horses, and some of them were great. Some of them the gravity thing was a problem. So on one big crash I had off of one horse, and it was totally not her fault, it was just environmental issue. I broke my femur, and it was pretty terrible, and in 2 places, and have a rod and all this stuff. So anyway, I recovered. And but my right seat bone, my right glute is just not as strong as the left now, just because. And so sometimes I have a little bit of a disconnect in that right seat bone. So I'm riding around, and Wendy says, I'm riding Fresco, who's got his own issues. And she says, now just take your tongue and put it to the top right of your mouth. I'm like, what? I just met this lady. I'm thinking, what is she talking about? Taking my tongue. No riding instructors ever talked about my tongue before. But I have great faith. So I was like, all right, I'm in, I'm all in. Let me just move the tongue, boom, right seat bone went right into the saddle. The horse lifts the hip, he's straight, and all of a sudden he's like through the back and on the bit, and off we go.
I love teaching those lessons because they're so mind-blowing to people.
I mean, seriously, so I still, even now, if I'm having a little irregularity somewhere, I always just check my tongue first, because I'm like, oh, I'm probably not somewhere, but it's the nuanced response, right? Tiny little micro move. And the same thing is true in your business, your career, and your relationship with your horse. So should we look at a picture of Fresco?
Yeah, I'm just telling people if they have any questions, put it in the chat. And I think I need to give one tiny little thing about the tongue, just so that people are trying to figure this out, is that you have a series of muscles called sphincters that go from your mouth all the way to the other end, and they're circular muscles. So like your eyes have sphincters, your mouth, your diverticulitis is a problem with a sphincter. And so these are ring muscles that are the most core muscles. And when people want to talk to me about core, I start talking about sphincters, because if they're not properly toned, there's a lack of internal tonus in the whole body. So you can access those sphincters through use of the tongue, and it affects all the way into your lower back and into your seat that the horses can feel. So I had a woman in Maryland, and she had really bad Lyme disease, and so she physically couldn't do a lot, and she had a super sensitive mare. I started with Surefoot with her, and then I taught her how to use her tongue to do her transitions and her turns, and then she could do it because she didn't have to physically do things, and her mare was super sensitive, and it was gorgeous. It just worked out fabulous. So maybe I'll talk more about that. I got to do some other Zoom meetings where I start doing some teaching, but I'm trying to get one thing done at a time, get my Zoom meetings. All right, so let's see some pictures. And also you have some charts kind of explaining that. How about the one with the optimum?
Yeah, that's because of high impact. We should probably look at that one first, because that'll set a good context. Just on a programming note for Wendy, if you guys haven't watched some of those videos that she set out last week, I was behind. And so I started Friday night, there's nothing on TV, and I got on her and I just started watching her videos, and I just got through 2, so I'm still behind. But the one with Sharon Wilsey on Horse Talk, which I bought Sharon's book after Wendy told me to buy the book. I'm like, got the book. Unbelievable, mind-blowing, life-changing. And the interview was fantastic. And there's this piece in there while you're talking about the tongue, around when they're talking about the facial nerves and the twitches and the things like that. And so you can see the horse swaying on the Surefoot, and then as it's processed, it goes through the body, and then it has this little flourish at the end with the tail. And it was so fantastic for me to see that, because worked on, horse stuff for a long, long time. And the next day I was riding my horse Noble, and I noticed the same thing. I was riding him in the saddle, and he had some epiphany that he did something up here in the front. And then I felt it real quick, like a little lightning bolt go through his body as I'm riding. And I felt just a little whoosh in the tail. And I thought, oh, that's it. So it's so fun to practice these things. So go back and watch those videos if you've missed them. It's great that you're recording this stuff, Wendy. So
yeah,
awesome.
and it's really fun because, it's like looking at all different aspects of the same thing. And so I've done 2 with Sharon, Dr. Harmon, Stephen Peters is coming back to do another segment on horse's brain. And it's all kind of giving you different aspects of the same thing, but it's really fun. Really enjoy it.
That's way cool. So you're going to make me figure out how to do the share here, right?
Yeah. You're going to hit your screen share and you're going to show us that chart that you showed me earlier.
No, that's not the chart. Hold on. We got to get back.
Okay.
So I just used this. Yeah. This one right here. Okay. So this is the high impact leadership model that I developed several years ago after working with hundreds of entrepreneurs and executives and corporate leaders and my own reinventions and horses. So for horse folks, it's great because you'll resonate with this. First of all, I distilled things down to just 3 things because I try to simplify everything. I was a scientist for 20 years, so I'm always trying to break things down into their simplest parts so I can understand them. So this is fuel. Fuel, what I mean by that is your energy. The energy with which you bring to the world, the energy you hold, the energy you're projecting. So this could be your mindset. And when we were talking about kind of negative self-talk or limiting beliefs or people talking about what did I do wrong or the focus there, really being mindful and creating awareness there so you can create those shifts and get yourself in a better fuel source. So even now, every time I go out to work with a horse, I always say, okay, what kind of energy do I need to be in? What kind of energy am I in right now? And then what energy do I need to be in to best work with that horse? And I call it neutral.
And it varies with horses, right? I mean, some horses need a little higher energy, some a little, that's too high, you have to be a little lower.
Exactly, that's right. So there's this intensity piece. So there's this, it's emotional intelligence, right? So it's awareness of self and awareness of other. So awareness of self is what energy am I carrying? Awareness of other, what energy is he going to need? What energy is he in or she in? And then what energy do I need to bring to that to be able to affect a positive relationship? So that's the first piece, is the fuel piece. And then the second piece is vision. How clear are you on your intention? What do you want to have happen here? Because if you're not clear in business or in life, you're not necessarily going to get what you want. Now, that's assuming you have a specific objective. If your objective is to explore and discover, that's fine too. So you may not have a specific vision for that, but typically we have a certain vision for what we'd like to see unfold in general for our goals. And then the action piece is obvious. You have to take the right kind of action. But here's what happens, is what I found in mapping this out is that there's these interesting intersections between the different circles. So if you have a positive fuel source and a really great vision for what you want to have happen, and you're dreaming and you're like, whoa, this is so fabulous, but you never take action, you're in that all talk, no action phase. So I worked in government contracting for years and have done a ton of strategic planning. And strategic planning is terrific. I mean, I do that now with my clients. We're always doing strategic planning sessions and retreats and things. But without action, without the implementation from the plan, you get nothing. So that's really important, making sure you're taking the action piece. And then the other thing is, you might have good fuel and you're taking a ton of action, but you've lost sight of your overall vision. So you're in number 2, which is kind of the scattered results place. And sometimes that causes frustration. So this happens a lot in business. It can also happen a lot with your horse. And the third thing is when you have a great vision and you're taking tons of action, but your fuel source is just low or negative or whatever it is, you can get into number 3, which is unsustainable and burnout. So that would look like, in the business world, companies that have been really hitting the ground hard, really doing a lot of work and moving towards their vision, or maybe they're already super successful, but the leadership is exhausted. That can happen. I've had that happen to me, even in a positive way, where I get so busy and there's all sorts of great things happening, but I haven't refueled myself. So you have to be really careful in that space. Horse trainers, really be careful in that space. What we really want is to be in this the high impact zone, where you've got this great balance of the right kind of fuel with just the right kind of vision and the right kind of action. And it can be a tiny, subtle little thing like Wendy's work that creates this huge, powerful, transformative experience like we see with Surefoot.
That's really cool. I love that. And you've explained it really well, because it's so easy to like not see how these interplay, but that makes a lot of sense. And so it's not like you have to put a ton of energy in, you just have to put the right amount of energy with the right amount of vision with the action. So Arthur brings me to mind a quote that Arthur Cottis would always say. And he said, well, do what you need, no more, no less. Right? Like if you need to act, act, but don't do more than you need to and don't do less than you need to. And it's finding that sweet spot.
It really is finding the sweet spot. And I'll tell you, so here's a quick example of how it can be screwed up. So I had this business a while back, and it was an information technology staffing and consulting. And so I was taking a ton of action. I had this vision of what it should look like. This was in the year 2000. But my fuel was really crummy, because my fuel was all about, oh, it needs to look like this, and here's the script for my sales calls, and I was making cold calls. People were hanging up on me. I was losing all kinds of confidence, and but I was taking tons of action. I was doing all the right stuff, right? And I had that business go from 0 to negative within 6 months. I mean, we were almost bankrupt. And I finally had to take a look at what was happening there. And I realized I was coming from a place of prove it energy, not good enough energy, all this kind of stuff. So I switched my energy around. I focused on my own unique approach, which was not a scripted sales call kind of thing. And within 6 months, got it to 2.1 million in the next 6 months, just by making those switches and getting into that high impact zone. So it's the same kind of thing. So my first horse, Dixie, was an ex-race horse, and she was a 15-2, 15-3 chestnut mare, true to form, pretty spooky. She was herd bound. She was, oh my gosh, I loved her. I still love her. She passed at age 31. But anyway, we would go eventing, and I had to give her a really good vision of the cross-country course. So we would walk the course in advance. I would walk the course in advance. I'd have it in my mind. I'd ride it.
Screen share for a minute so we can see you a little better.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Stop share.
Stop share. That's okay. There we go. Good. Great. Okay. Go on.
So with my horse Dixie, I was talking about my little chestnut mare, and she was a fiery little thing. Oh my gosh. But so I would walk the cross country course, the day before the event, and I'd have it in my mind. And then that night, I'd go through that vision in my mind. And you know how you walk the course in your mind and all that kind of sports psychology stuff. I do that stuff all the time. But here's the thing. When you're walking it in your mind, you got to pay attention to what's happening in your body. Because if you're not breathing at what you just imagined as a dark place, or the scary fence, number 7, or whatever it is going into the woods, that's what's getting imprinted. So the vision then becomes, oh, I need to spook there, or oh, I need to stop there. So you have to be really mindful. So I would walk that course in my mind until I could breathe into the whole thing, because otherwise it's a bad fuel source, right? And then the action piece would be, all right, so I'm going to run through it just as if I'm riding her. And she was funny with water and different things. And so what's my correction going to be there? And let's assume that she goes perfectly. What would that feel like? And I would ride it like that until I was perfectly fluid, having fun with great joyful fuel. And I'll tell you what, the horse would go awesome the next day, like almost exactly the way that I had imagined in my head. And the same thing, rehearsing for presentations or anything like that. You can use this tool anywhere. And it's about getting in that little red X.
So somebody's asked a question, how do you get out of the routine, I think she meant, of doing, and not being able to move on? For example, always researching and learning to grow my bodywork business, but I don't seem to be able to get my business Facebook and website started. Some of it is not knowing how to do it. But, obviously there's a block there blocking her from getting it done or finding somebody that can do it.
Yeah, and that's a great question, and it's so common. And that same kind of example could be used no matter where you are in your life, or what kind of thing. What are you not doing? You're recognizing there's a little piece there. So my thinking on that is here's what I tell my clients who get a little stuck there: is what's the easiest, teeniest, tiniest baby step you could do to move that forward? The tiniest little thing. Sometimes we think we have to have this whole built out website and business cards and all these kinds of things. I'll tell you what, you don't even need that. You don't actually, just need a way for people to reach you. I mean, of course, it's great to have a website and all of that. Really, we want to just start making connections and doing it your way. So reaching out to friends, maybe you have a free, a group or something where you can get to know people and they can get to know about your work, something that's fun for you, that uses your best strengths, that's really easy. You're probably trying to take too big a step, is my guess.
So in other words, and I know this one because it's like I hit writer's block all the time. I've got one kind of going right now, and we tend to look at the huge thing that we have to get done. But if we just get started with a tiny little piece of it, what happens is we get so involved that it leads us forward. So a friend of mine gave me a great little thing to do. She said, set a timer for 15 minutes and tell yourself, okay, I'm going to work on whatever this is for 15 minutes. And at the end of 15 minutes, I can stop. But what happens is at the end of 15 minutes when the timer goes off, usually you're engaged now. And so you want to keep going. It's like you say, it's taking that little tiny step and not having to worry about getting it all done at once. I totally agree with you on that.
Right. And the other thing is about creating, if you're a business owner and you're starting to get out there, it's really creating awareness about what's possible for the prospect, for your target market. You're not trying to sell them. Forget selling them. Selling is like the scariest thing ever. Right? So all we want to do is be able to say, hey, this thing has really worked well for me. Here are some ways it could work for you. Give yourself permission to experiment with it or whatever. Invite people into the possibility of what's available to them. So they don't have to buy from you, take that pressure off, but they do have to know about you so that they can then choose in the full suite of all the options available. They can decide, you know what, maybe I do want that. But if you hold back and you don't put yourself out there, people don't have the option of getting the kind of support that they could really, really use.
But this is so true about people in their riding. They're so afraid of making a mistake that they don't put themselves out there with their horse and experiment because somebody has told them what they should do, and they don't trust their own intuition, their own understanding their horse, knowing the situation, knowing themselves to do little experiments. And I'm always trying to get my students to not worry about right or wrong, but within the safe, always keeping safety in mind, but experimenting. And so by that, I mean, like if you're riding, instead of just like trying to hold your position the way you've been told to do, it's like, what happens if you make a little change? What happens if you shift or play around, and let your horse be that feedback for you so that it's not this right or wrong concept. We get so stuck on the right and wrong instead of exploration and investigation. And once we move into investigation, we become engaged, and so does our horse. And then we become curious and interested, and things start to evolve from there. It's when we have this, judgmental, I have to do it right, or it's going to be wrong, or I'm going to make a mistake, that we get so locked up. And I think that leads into, we just got a couple of questions from people is, how do you get yourself to recognize what you have to offer? And another person is, how do you change your mindset to believe in yourself? And I think these are both people are basically asking the same thing. And before I let you answer, I just want to say, one of the exercises Shari had me do was go to my good clients and give them a list of questions and ask them what they thought of my teaching. And what I got back from them was so powerful that sometimes it's so hard for us to see what our gifts are because we're in this body and living this life, and good and bad and all the things that are happening. But when we allow our friends, our relatives, our students, our clients to give us feedback, I was blown away. It was so amazing, and it's still amazing to me. And so sometimes we need other people to help us see what our gifts really are.
It is, Wendy, and it's so there's two things there, and thank you for sharing that. It's first, when you do that exercise, it takes some courage to do that exercise too, right? Because you're
Oh
being
yeah, I was
vulnerable
like, oh no,
and
again.
you're opening yourself up. You're thinking, you know, you're opening yourself up and being vulnerable. It's like, oh my God, what are they going to say? You know, first of all, I don't know. And then to be able, if it's, you know, good comments, I mean, this all feedback. And then being open to receive. So you talk about the heart math, and I've done a lot of work with using Heart Math Institute teachings, and they have a lot of stuff free. Also, if you go heartmathinstitute.org, I think you can look them up.
I just put in heart math here, and they can look.
Yeah. Yeah, check it out. So you want to be open to receive. So when you do get compliments, you don't want to just let them bounce off your heart. You want to be able to open up and expand and receive it, so you can actually use it to nurture yourself. The other thing too, to check, someone had a comment here on it's around limiting beliefs. So one of the questions, two questions, and this is kind of the Socratic method in the spirit of Wendy's comment around, we all have the knowledge, the solutions inside. So it's a process of inquiry and self-discovery, and that's what the horses are doing too. So here's two questions. What am I assuming about this? What am I assuming about this? And just list, what else am I assuming? What else am I assuming? What else am I assuming? And just keep going through until you can't think of anything else that you would be assuming. And then ask yourself, how else can I think about this? All right? How else can I think about this? And keep going. How else? How else? How else? How else? And I'll tell you what, if you do this exercise on a regular basis and you find the truth, it may bring tears to your eyes. It may make your heart go, that's the truth. That's the truth. You know, I'm really great at this, and I'm so terrified that I'm not going to make it in this space, that I'm creating all kinds of excuses to not put myself out there, or I'm going to block myself through all this action, but it's not the right kind of action that really connects me with people and allows them to buy from me. Because there's you know how horses, this is one of the most important fundamentals in my work and probably in working with horses, and you guys know this, is horses are drawn to confidence and trust, and they move away from fear and doubt, right? So do people, so do buyers, so do all that. So if your business is being run from a place of doubt and fear, you're inadvertently driving away your people. So we really need to rebalance that energy system. So whatever that looks like for you, it could be meditation, sitting in the quiet, like Wendy said. It's just really, really important stuff. Yeah, what am I assuming? How else can I think about this? So those are two things. Let me think about two. Anyway, those are two pivotal ones that'll change your mindset. The other thing too is we want to start really building up the nourishment and the fuel. So if you don't have a daily practice that nourishes you, like gratitude, journaling, meditation, yoga, any of those kinds of things, I think someone just raised their hand.
I have to figure out how to do the hand raising thing.
Okay, we're sorting through the technology. But can I put up this other chart, because it might be helpful?
Yeah, let's go. Like, and this is, you know, one of the things that I found with Surefoot, and why I love doing Surefoot so much, is that when I put horses on pads, you know, they have a huge magnetic field. We're all electromagnetic energy, and they have a huge magnetic field. And as they let down and go into that parasympathetic, and I think even deeper than that, I watch everybody around them get this washed over with this really peaceful feeling that the horse is feeling. So for me, I just love doing Surefoot because it's so energizing. It's like, it's recharging and fun and positive. And I never feel tired afterward, which is just one of those fascinating things. Okay.
Yes, it's so beautiful. So, you know what? I might go through this other one first.
Okay.
Okay. So this is something that I came up with, another little chart that from working with the horses, and Lemon Squeezy is an ex-race horse. And so I've been reworking him into his new career for the past, well, really just a little over a year, because last year he spent recovering from all kinds of injuries. So anyway, this is awareness of energy. So we really need to have awareness of self, awareness of other, and awareness of the environment. And you'll see horses do this as well. And the questions they're asking are, am I safe? Are you safe? Is it safe? You know, are you a threat? Is the environment a threat? Or maybe you're just not a non-entity. You're not even visible because something else is preoccupying the attention. And the same thing can happen in business. So we want to be very aware of how you're feeling yourself. Are you a threat to yourself? You might be a threat to yourself. You might be self-sabotaging in your own goals, right? So that's where we start shifting the energy. I'm going to show you the other chart in a second.
That could be in the writing as well as in business. Like I keep
Totally.
wanting to reinforce that this is not just isolated to business. This is, you can think of your writing as a business, on that level.
Yeah. Any partnership. So my horses are my partners. Sometimes I'm a threat to them inadvertently. You know, if I'm attacking them with my leg because it's too much and they're not getting forward and all I know how to do is just kick, 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 that's a bad thing. I become a threat to them and they start to do things that I don't necessarily want. I want a willing, trusting, open partner. I don't want just an obedient horse going forward. That's been my big thing since I was a kid. So I've had to look for all kinds of different ways to encourage that and inspire that. Ultimately, this is a leadership thing for all of us, and we need to be the safe place. And in order to be the safe place for our horse, we need to be the safe place for ourselves first, right? And we need to be seen by ourselves. We can't be invisible to ourselves. So that can come up when you're so busy taking care of everything else and you're not taking care of yourself. You're invisible to yourself. So this is a really key chart. I'm just giving you guys some highlights here. So if anybody has questions, you can go to my website. Feel free to email me. There's the jager2.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions and anytime.
I like the point you're making about invisible, because I find with a lot of women that, they go to ride with men and the men tell them they're not a strong enough leader. But I really think that it's different than that. And I think this word invisible actually really fits, is that women tend to disempower themselves, especially in a position where there's an authority. And so we try to become invisible, and then the horse doesn't recognize us. So he moves into our space because we're literally not there. And that we really have to, take our space and be present so that the horse acknowledges that. And it's because otherwise, like I see so many women and they're trying to do this like a man, and a lot of them try to move into like a dominant role, but that's not their nature. So it doesn't work out really well. But I think the word invisible actually is the word that describes it the best, that they don't know how to like energetically take their space.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Wendy. And I see it. I work with a lot of leaders of organizations and some pretty powerful people who outwardly look like they've totally got it going on. I mean, really, truly. And then when you get behind the scenes and you start peeling it back, all kinds of insecurities and vulnerabilities about being seen, about being able to accept themselves in this role, about being good enough. And we all have that to some degree. And we're all, it's a lifelong journey to continue to grow. But when you're out of alignment, when you're incongruent with yourself, your horse is going to feel it, and you're not going to be able to get the kinds of results that you want.
Absolutely.
So this is Lemon Squeezy in a workshop, and you can see it's not like I just grew ears.
Yeah.
He got freaked out because he wanted to be invisible. He got nervous. He shrank back. There are all these people, and he's like, "No way, man! I'm hiding." So he literally was positioning his body behind me, and I was the safe place for him. He needed to be behind me. So it's kind of interesting.
Sharon Wilsey talks about that, the sandwich, where the horses want to, and they don't want to necessarily be the first horse. They want to be in the middle between horses, right?
Yes.
And that's so, I mean, I take people on horseback safari to Kenya. It's so absolutely fascinating, because very few horses can be a strong lead horse. Most of them want, they think they want to lead, and then they get up there and they go, "No, you can take over. I'll just sit back here in second place."
It's so true. And with natural horsemanship, with Ray Hunt and Tom Dorrance, they're always talking about feel of the horse, feel for the horse, and feel with the horse, right? We've heard that. Anybody who's studied all that? And I was like, well, what the heck does that mean? So when you really start to feel into that, feeling of, it's an awareness piece. And it's not just feeling of the horse, it's feeling of the horse's environment. And the same thing is true in your business life or your career life. You feel of the environment. What does it feel like? Well, it feels like a threat. Well, how do I neutralize that threat? Feeling with is more of an empathy, right? Feeling with. And well, feeling for is real empathy. And feeling with is, am I with you? Is he with me? And sometimes, like with Lemon Squeezy, I didn't get eyes, ears, nothing. I was invisible in our first month or two together. I mean, he was nervous. He was worried about his environment all the time. I was not a safe place for him. So much so that he couldn't even see me, which became very dangerous because when he'd spook, he'd run me down. And I did a lot of work in hand, you know, and I've had a lot of experience working with horses, and you can always learn more. So it's been a really interesting journey. But I'm thinking I want to jump to another chart. Is that okay,
Let's
Wendy?
go.
Okay, we'll go, and then we'll talk about Surefoot. This one, because this one comes off of the safe place. So when you're feeling, so I developed this chart based on, again, working with horses and working with people. So on the top, you'll see the trust side, and that is where you feel safe. And you'll see this with Surefoot, right? A horse starts to relax into Surefoot. It starts to feel safe. It starts to explore, meaning it's swaying, right? And then the horse may not be seeing many options, but when we're exploring, we start to see many options. And this was what Wendy was talking about before with the curiosity factor. You get out of fear by becoming curious about it. Take the emotion out and get curious about a situation. Then you can start to see options because you're getting out of that amygdala hijack, which is that fight, flight, freeze section of your brain, the limbic system, and you're getting more into the cognitive frontal lobe where you can actually relax and see options, the executive functioning center, and then you can grow. But at the same time, we're human and horses have the same thing, is at any moment you may feel a bit unsafe. So we go back and forth around the circle. And if you feel unsafe, you kind of put a pause up and you might get stuck for a minute. And then you start to see no option other like, where's the escape route? And you start to shrink back. And I've done this. I mean, even writing these books and doing different things, I have to like relax myself, take the breath. What am I assuming about this? What would make me feel more safe? I just took off too big of a jump, or I didn't quite have the training I needed, or I didn't quite have the support that I needed, or the deadline's too close, you know, whatever it is. You can think about that. But this is a handy chart.
This is a great chart. And, you know, the more you're talking about this chart, the more it reminds me of all the conversations I've had about the polyvagal theory and the vagal response, which that big question, I talk about that a lot. Its question is, am I safe? And if we're feeling threatened and not safe, we're not going to learn well. We're not going to see options. We're going to be maybe in some state of freeze or slush, as Robin Hood calls it, where we're going through the motions, but we're not present and engaged. And those are the places where, like you say, they're below the line of fear, and we're really not going to be learning or developing or creating or engaging. We're just kind of going through the motions or not, as depending on how stuck we are. And we need to be in that place above that line, above the trust line. And obviously, like you say, it varies, but that's where we find that creativity. And creating a safe space, like if you're getting stuck like with a writing project or something, the first thing I do is I have to clear everything else out so I have a safe, quiet place to work. Because if there's lots of noise and distraction, I get pulled away. So this is a great chart. I love this chart, Shari.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a chart queen because, you know, you go back to the science days and you're never far. What I want to share with you is today. So this is another thing about me, which is a real hindrance sometimes in my business, because I'm like, no, it has to be current, has to be now, can't use old photos, have to use now. So I just dropped everything in my own business this morning. I'm like, Lemon Squeezy, we need to look at you today. What do you look like on Surefoot? So here's what happened. So for those of you in Virginia, it was a cool, fresh, windy morning a little bit. And, you know, he's a frisky little dude. So he was like, woohoo, coming in from the field, trying to bite my butt. He was actually a little bit disobedient in a dominant kind of way because he's always challenging. He doesn't really want to lead, but he just needs to be sure that I'm going to lead, that I'm worth it. So we had that conversation, which was over in about 2 seconds. But he came into this arena, and I hadn't brushed him, so he's full of mud. I thought, oh, no, I need at least a little brush on him. And so I'm trying to put brush on him. He hates being brushed. So this is what's happening. First 2 minutes, he's in. He's like, wait, where's the cows? The cows are on the other side of the arena. He's like, oh my God, the cows. Oh no, you can't brush me. So he's spinning around. I'm by myself with the camera. Okay, put the camera away. Horse is spinning around. I'm chasing him with the brush. Not really, but this is what he does. He enters a place and he's completely scattered. He's completely scattered. And I know this about him, so I give him a moment. We try to just sort that out without too much drama. And within probably 3 minutes, I had him on the first pad. You can see on the upper left there. He's got his little foot on that pad, and that's his cow face without cow snort. He's looking out towards the cows. You can see his ears are there, but he's very happy on that pad. And I'm not holding him, right? There's nobody else in there. It's just me and him. So I'm like, dude, all right, that looks good. You stand still. I'm going to take a picture of this because I think it looks, it's interesting where his focus is. So he's settling in place while being a little concerned, awareness of other, right? And then in the second one, I had put the other Surefoot pad on him, and I said, hey, can you do this with? He's like, well, I don't know. He's a little stiff with bringing, let me take the knee, you know. He's like, oh, I don't know. And I said, I bet you could. And he's like, well, okay. And he's like, put his foot down. And then he's like, wait a minute, there's something over there. But he didn't leave the Surefoot pads, right? So he's sorting out, here's the question, am I a safe place? Well, kind of, but not sure, but enough that I'm gonna stay right here. Awareness of self, awareness of other, awareness of environment. The environment might not be safe. I have to keep checking. So this is the Sharon Wilsey, you know, going on here too. I can see her, I can feel her comments on this. And then there are probably 10 more images, but I couldn't fit them on there. So this last one on the left is maybe about 5 minutes or so. And he was just about to lick and chew. And then he licked and chewed. He brought his head down. I missed that photo. And he also dropped. So, which he never does in there. And he was chilled. And then he finally decided he'd have enough and he started walking towards me. But look at that quiet face.
Right. And so this is what Surefoot does. It's so fascinating, is it helps the horses be able to decide that they're safe. Like there's something about the pads that's triggering neurochemicals, and obviously we don't totally understand it just yet, but it's those neurochemicals that are switching the horse from fight and flight, sympathetic, to parasympathetic, rest and digest. And the more we can toggle their nervous system, the more they learn how to do it for themselves. So this is Lemon Squeezy's been on pads for about 2 years. So if you unshare your screen, I can go and share some of the pictures from when we first started with him, which was not long after you got him desktop.
Yeah, so I got him in December of 2017, but it was a frigid, cold winter, and we didn't really start working together or doing anything till a little bit later. And then Wendy introduced him to the pads, and actually, I think that's me sitting on him.
Yeah, you were sitting on him.
Yep.
And I went through the different densities, but he picked the soft pads, and that's why I said the horses usually get to decide which density that they like. And in this case, you saw he was still on blue, and he's on blue here. He really liked the soft pad. So I'm just going to toggle forward here. This is just it's a down view. We're in the arena. You can see how much the pads squish. And how were his feet when you first got them, Shari? I can't remember now.
Yeah, he was in front shoes, but he had been, oh my gosh, he hadn't been shod in a really long time. So we ended up taking his shoes off because it's really good feet actually for a thoroughbred, which is one of the reasons I bought him. And I want to tell you guys, I don't use a flash on him anymore, so he didn't actually ever need the flash, but his feet were really good. However, last year he had a really bad sprain of the collateral medial ligament on the left, which is why he was out most of the year. Plus, he also broke his cheekbone in his face, smacking it playing in the fence. He had a rough year. So we didn't do anything really riding wise last year. He's just coming back into work this year, and so it's been great to have the Surefoot pads to help him regain his balance and all that.
But it's so interesting to look at his neck here and then see the pictures of his neck that you just showed. This is such a different picture. Look at this thick under neck muscle and very little top line. I mean, it's really I haven't seen him in a while. It's significantly different. Oh, people think he's really cute, and he is really cute.
Thank you. He's way cute. If you just look at some of those videos on YouTube, you're going to be like, oh my God, he's the cutest thing. He really, he's
Yep.
pretty precious.
And he checked out the pad. So this is all during that session that we did with him. And you can see that really soft look, like he checked out the pad and then he gets this really soft, introverted, self-exploration. So we added the slant behind. But Shari, look at also the stance. Can you see how he's more go down a rock, like his feet are coming together? And the picture you just showed, we're going to have you share your screen again in a minute. He's so much more square. But here we see how much his chest is bulging forward and how his legs are angled back. So this is when she first got him. And you can see that he looks like a totally different horse now.
Yeah, and that was even several months after. So, I mean, he was doing really, boy, by the end of December of 2018, he was rocking. And then January, he wrecked himself. So, what are you going to do? And he was dropping too. Yeah, you're right, Loretta, you got that. I don't know if I can say that on that video,
We've got a little video of his face. And we can see the really softness. So I think if I remember right, Shari, when I came that day, he was looking out the doors and a little bit anxious about being in the arena, but it didn't take long using the pads for him to settle into, here we have a little longer video. And Shari asked me not to have her in the videos when I film them. And that's why we have her head cut off.
Yes. Good. Thank you for that.
Yeah, well, I try to, please, but you can see how he's swaying, and I'll see if I can make that, if I can go to full screen.
Yeah, look at that sway.
Yep. So if I'm just going to take this in here, I'm just going to kind of go back and forth, but you can see how much he sways right. Yep. And then he looks and he sways way right. That's when he was a little bit anxious about something out the door, right? But we still see he has a little bit of that behavior like you showed today, but like way less now. There's still a piece of him that has to really make sure his environment is safe.
Oh yeah.
But then look at the ear flick back, and then he comes back and he sways again. Look at the dreamy eye, and then we see how the eyes just shut right there.
Yeah, and Christine was asking about, it doesn't make a difference with a rider on or without a rider.
So if I have any concern about the horse at all, I start without a rider. The reason I have a lot of videos with riders is because my day job is teaching riding. And this is something that when the riders feel what the horse does, it gives you a whole different perspective about the horse and about the habits that he has and the training you've been doing. I have so many people when they feel the horse come off the pads and move in such a different way that it basically breaks the glass. It breaks their assumed perception of their horse and why things are happening. And so I really like to do this when possible with a rider on, but obviously you need a ground person to do that. And seeing as how that's my job. Yeah, I was trying to get a picture of his feet and his nose got in the way.
So cute.
But yep, that's just, all right. So
it was just transformative again this morning to be out there, to run out there and have him all fired up and then be like, oh, pads. And he's a spooky dude, he's just very aware of his.
Can you pick up of him again so we can see the difference?
Yeah, let's see. Just going to challenge my screen share. Can I do this?
Yeah, you can do it. I know you can.
I can do it. I can do it. Of course I can. All right. Yeah. So you can see that. Especially this, some of these, this one right here. Oh, let me get you on there. So wait a minute. What happened?
I can see your screen.
Can you see it? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's not.
See your slideshow. If you start slideshow, then it'll just be the.
Oh, that's Fresco, by the way, in 2009 with Wendy after one of our wonderful sessions. Okay, here's Lemon Squeezy. Yeah, definitely. I mean, look at the front end. He's not underneath himself like he was, really sitting back. He's not even been in work. This is just his natural way now. Even when the vet came out to check him the other day, he said, wow, he stands so square,
right.
Which I was really happy I don't set him up. He chooses that. So I love what you always say too, Wendy, is you say the horse gets to vote.
Yes.
And that is awesome. So the more that we can listen to that. Now, here's the thing is we can't hear them vote if we have a whole bunch of noise in our mind, right? So we need to be able to be quiet and be our own safe place for ourselves so that we can really hear them.
Well, and it's fascinating because people don't even realize when they're, so my example is, you know, I go to pick up a horse's foot and they're like, come on, pick up your horse, pick up your foot. And it's like, I don't care if he picks up his foot, because obviously the horse knows how to have his foot picked up. And if he's not picking it up, he's trying to tell me something, whether I'm choosing the wrong foot or he's got the weight on it, or he, you know, he's not ready yet. And so, you know, that's where I even start there with giving the horses a choice. I'll just go to another foot and say, how about this one, right? Would you like this one? And if they walk off the pad, it's totally fine. It doesn't matter, because if they walk off the pad, they've lost their balance in some way. And that's why we're there. That's what we're looking at. When the horses are really grounded and secure, like Lemon Squeezy standing here, is you can have external environmental influences, but they're able to process that. They're able to stay stable and quiet, recognize that they're safe, and not have to react. And isn't that what we want? Horses that can evaluate their environment, determine that they're safe, determine what that thing is, then check it out, and then come back into their world and go, I'm fine, so that they can be present with us and not distracted by those external environmental inputs. And we're one of those external environmental inputs. So how calm we are where we're at, like sometimes I have a lot of my clients stand on the pads themselves, because they're needing to calm down, and the pads work great on people too.
Yeah, they really do. And I'll just show you one last thing about this kind of the alignment piece.
Just check your volume. Suddenly it got really loud.
Oh, sorry.
There you
Sorry,
go.
guys.
Oh, you got close to the screen.
Okay. Let me stop yelling at you. I think we're running out of time, so let me be
No, we
mindful.
are.
Okay. So this is if you look at this picture at the top, look at the people's legs and Lemon Squeezy's legs. What I'm finding in the work that I do, and this is just happenstance, nobody tries to march in step or anything like that. We never even talk about it, but this is the physical representation of the alignment from that high impact leadership model. Everybody here is in the little X. We're in the same energy, we have the same shared vision, and we're all taking the same kind of action. And the result is that you get this consistent footfall, which is, it happens all the time. I just happen to see these in photos when I'm looking at things after. So it's pretty beautiful. Everyone can do it. So I invite you guys to explore that. And this is Lemon Squeezy winning a little race back in 2016. He was a little rock star. And then one of the last rides we had in 2018, when he was kind of figuring out some bend and some things. And he is the star of his of Reinventing Greatness. So that's he's very proud of that, and he's serving as an ambassador for the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. So we do fundraisers for them as well.
Great. All right, just unshare your screen. We'll wrap this up. And
great, thanks, Wendy.
Yeah. No, thank you all for joining us. It's the hour just flies by. We really appreciate you joining us. To find out more, Shari, where can they go to find out more about what you do?
Yeah, so you can find me on social media, on Facebook, under my name, ShariJGoodwin.com. Jaeger2 is the website, JAEGER, the number 2.com, all kinds of stuff on there. And best of luck to you guys. It's such a great journey, and it's so great to be part of Wendy's community and share different insights.
Yep. And so guests this week, I have Dr. Robert Bowker tomorrow. I have Robin Hood on Thursday. I'm doing another Surefoot webinar on Friday. We'll do a little more in-depth look. Next week, I've already got a whole host of people lined up. To see the recordings of these videos, please go to my YouTube channel, either Surefoot Equine or Murdoch Method. I think these are all going up on Surefoot Equine at this point because they're Surefoot topics. You can find me on Facebook at Murdoch Method, and you can find Surefoot at Surefoot Equine page. And of course, my website is murdochmethod.com. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate you spending time with us. I know this is a kind of a trying time for a lot of people, and I hope that we, for an hour, we're able to like bring you back to the horses and give you some peace. So thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks, Shari. It was great.
Thanks, Wendy. It was great. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.